Hi guys, today is the 25th of May and it's 55 minutes past 4 in the morning over here in the UK. I just want to quickly make an update to the last video I did, which was about this video talking about blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. So very quickly, let's get on with it. First thought is, when the goat pops its head out of the box, it's actually literally telling you to think outside the box, because that's what the goat is doing, or the little kid goat, or the little goat kid rather. So that's pretty much where we have to be with this video. We can think of things as we see them in terms of the surface level, but then, as we've gone through this video over the years, we've discovered a lot of things, described below that surface. And for a lot of the time, I have focused on like the climate side of things, volcanoes, earthquakes. I have talked about the wars and the blackouts, the tsunamis, and all those other things. But I've only recently started to look at it from a financial perspective, because obviously not only would it be destruction in the physical, but destruction in the financial, to destroy what is current to bring in what is new. Again, just in this video, when it starts, we are of the perspective outside of this caged society. I'm assuming that each of these boxes has, a representation of what would be people. The suggestion being, not physically or literally boxed in or caged, but more metaphorically caged in, which can be done, financially. For example, if you're having to rely on the government for your money, if something was to happen, that can really restrict you. And with this new system that they want to bring in, blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies, it really allows them to have more control in terms of seeing what you spend your money on, potentially programming money to make it expire. So you have to spend it, you can't save, thereby you're constantly having to rely on the government, and you can never achieve that independence through finance. So let's move on very quickly. Obviously, I've talked about the GOAT and the 666 on his head, the mark of the beast, the, one world currency. As the blocks drop down, they arrange to spell out the title of this video, iPet GOAT 2. But you can also interpret that as the blocks falling into place in terms of a plan. The pieces are falling into place, so each step is, being executed. And as it is being executed, that part of the plan is done, and it moves on until the plan is complete. And obviously, as I mentioned in the last video, these blocks that are in a chain do reference blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. In the next frame of this video, we have the hands of the unseen figure with the $ ring, which is gold. In my last video, that's a dollar backed by gold or dollar linked to gold. But to, expand on that idea, the dollar ring is on a finger, but a finger can also be called a digit. So that just made me think that we're not just thinking of the dollar linked to gold or backed by gold, but also it would be a digital dollar linked to gold or backed by gold. So that kind of brings you into, I think I have to turn up the volume for this part just a bit. When the video plays, you'll hear the tap dancing, which is reminiscent of fingers tapping away on a keyboard. And in my interpretation, I believe that is linked to a cyber attack, which we're hearing a lot of in the news lately. So all that noise is very reminiscent of tapping away on a keyboard. A hacker, for example, who can type very quickly, even as he is doing the tap dancing with his feet, his fingers are doing the movement of someone typing away on a keyboard. And if it is obviously related to a cyber attack, for example, to do with the power plants, we heard, well, there was news maybe 2 years ago or something of Russia gaining access to America's critical facilities like power plants, electric grid. Recent news of China being able to do the same, and obviously the United States did have 2 of those Chinese balloons doing God knows what, flying over the country, as well as one flying over Canada. So you can pretty much say the North America side of things looks ripe for some sort of attack. We know that this video also shows sharks, like the one on the chalkboard in the background here, which is a metaphor or an interpretation for submarines, and we know that that seems to be approaching on the east coast of the United States. But putting that aside and getting back to the financial interpretation, if a cyber attack was to happen, and the banks were to, shut down, or for example, there was an attack on the stock exchange, or all the stock exchanges, or most important ones anyway, that kind of brings me to the evolution word in the background, the L, the T, and the N being capitalized. And if we're talking financial markets, the biggest are in New York, Tokyo, and London. So if those three capitals were hit in terms of their financial market, their stock markets, then that could then escalate to the banks, where we may have a scenario develop, which I'm going to talk about now, which is called ICE 9. It's a metaphorical scenario, but something like this could very well happen, especially with, all the debt ceiling talk, the inflation, potential for cyber attacks. It's all there. So this story just says the elites are going to freeze and seize your bank account. Has already happened in several countries, which is true. Financial markets were effectively frozen in Cyprus in 2013, Greece in 2010, and Argentina in 2022. Those were all dry runs for the next big financial crisis, which I assume they're referring to America, or the world, rather. So ICE 9, as a special water molecule that freezes at 45.8 Celsius. So ICE 9 is a polymorph of water invented in a fictional story by Kurt Vonnegut, with a different freezing point of 45.8 Celsius. Once this polymorphed molecule comes into contact with regular water, all the regular water molecules freeze. Regular water morphs into the polymorph on contact. The contagion spreads very quickly, and all the water on the planet is frozen in the blink of an eye. The entire system goes ICE 9. If you just think back to the iPad Go 2 video, once we get outside of the classroom, everything is in ice form. So that could be a reference to that. But for financial markets, ICE 9 by Jim Richards refers to a hypothetical scenario for a future financial crisis where your bank account is frozen by the government, probably for 3 or 4 months, while the world transitions to SDRs, aka world money, or in blockchain speak, CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies. I spoke about that in my last video. The one to watch particularly is Circle USD. So I think that would be the one that is chosen to represent the dollar in digital form, which obviously then could be given to the citizens in replace of their ordinary money, maybe with a little bit more on top to sweeten the pot a little bit. But basically it says in this one here, no more USD, euros, won, pounds, Swiss francs. Everyone moves to SDRs, and I think that will be something that comes further into the future. Once everyone's onto digital currency, their individual digital currencies, then it will be a case of moving everyone from their individual digital currencies into one world currency. So that's where I believe that will be heading. So this sort of similar in the end state as letting hyperinflation run rampant for 2 or 3 years, letting existing currencies get destroyed in a hyperinflation firestorm, and then you start over. But instead of going through a 2 or 3 year chaos firestorm period of hyperinflation, major world governments cooperate to skip the 2 or 3 years of hyperinflation and just transition to a new currency without going through the chaos period. So if there was a cyber attack that allowed the banks to freeze or ICE 9 your accounts, and then 3 or 4 months, perhaps much quicker, but at some point in the near future you would then have your regular money replaced with digital money, and I don't know what would happen after that, whether people would complain or whether they would be happy with whatever they had in their bank account plus a couple extra thousand digital dollars on top. That could be what sweetens the pot, and obviously money talks, as they say, so that may keep a few people quiet, ironically. But as I said, in that situation, if you have, for example, the New York Stock Exchange, the exchange in Tokyo and exchange in London under attack from something to do with the internet or the cyber world, we could then have the ICE 9 scenario where people would get the one-to-one in terms of digital value for what they held, but there's also the fact that people that hold more than a certain amount, so for example $250,000, which is some sort of federal limit, I can't remember exactly what it is, some of you may know, feel free to put it in the comments, but if you have more than that in the bank, then you may get an IOU instead, so you'll get up to a certain amount in your bank account, but whatever you had beyond that certain amount you would get an IOU for, which you probably would never actually have fulfilled. And obviously that comes into the 3 letters that are missing from the evolution word, which is obviously UIO, and just rearrange that and you've got IOU. So attack the stock exchanges in these three capitals, and then ice9 the bank accounts, IOU the people with more than a certain amount in their banks. And I think the ice9 theory is actually reinforced when it comes to the scene here with the stamping character. We've talked about the 9 on the ground and how that represents a potential magnitude 9 earthquake along with the stamping on the ground. But looking at it from a financial perspective, the ground is ice and we do have this number 9 carved into it. So it could be referencing an ice9 scenario where your bank accounts are frozen, and then the Shiva mask could then, instead of representing, you know, a location like India, could just represent destruction and chaos in the god of destruction, Shiva. And the fire in the background could just be the system going up in flames, the financial system going up in flames, for example. I do believe that as the fire moves, images are encoded into it, but it's very, very difficult to kind of stop it at a place where you may or may not see something. So, you know, you can freeze it as much as you like, you can slow it down. And we've done it before, tried to capture what's there, but it's very difficult, especially in slow motion because it's moving so slow. It's hard to try and figure out what's there. But I think we've done good work in terms of this video. Myself, JK Bugout, others, sorry I forget the names, it's been such a long time since I've been working on this video and since I've watched others work on this video. But there we go, guys. That's all I really wanted to update you guys with today. Just the goat popping its head out of the box to think outside the box. Re-emphasis on the 666 mark of the beast, one world currency system, with the blocks falling into place, or the plan coming together, creating the blockchain, which is the link to the technology and the cryptocurrency, and then the further link to the pound, or the, sorry, not the pound, the dollar, or rather the digital dollar, connecting that to gold in some way, whether backed by or linked by. You know, all of that's there. ice9, freeze the bank accounts, some sort of cyber attack on the stock exchanges to make that happen. IOUs for people with too much money, so we can keep, you know, the wealth down across the board. And that's really kind of what they mean by equality. You know, they don't mean making the poor rich, they just mean making the rich poor and everyone being poor, apart from, you know, a handful of people, the unseen people with the lizard hands. So you guys, doom and gloom as always with these interpretations, but regardless, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.